Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 355. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you for the privilege of your time joining us today. If you're watching us live, if you're watching us recorded, thank you for the time to take out of your busy day to do this. I first don't want ever to make this a show other than its intent, and that is about hospitality marketing. But it would be cold and insensitive if we did not draw attention to the tragedies that are happening in our world today. This may not be a global thing because gosh knows there's terrible things happening globally that we don't always know about in our news here in the States. But what has hit profoundly hard in our country is the loss of life that has happened in Texas with the school. And we just want to pay tribute and sadness. I don't want it to be a familiar feeling. I want it to be a raw, painful feeling for me to not get used to these things happening, and it's happening all too often. And we're not going to politicize our conversations. Right now, it's to offer all the feelings that we can in the way that we can, and hopefully through a collective society, we find a solution that we can all come to a ground with, regardless of our particular perspectives on what caused this, that we have to solve it. So I hope that we get to that point in the very near future, certainly before it happens again. So, like I said, do not want to be in any way diminutive to anything else that's happening in the world, obviously with Ukraine and what have you. The tragedies, the horrors and the tragedies that are happening there, the numbers are even more astronomical than what I'm reflecting upon here in the States. But all these tragedies, as a global society, we need to have a solution so these do not happen. That being said, I'd like to get into our topic today. I apologize for being solemn at the beginning, but I think it's important that we don't forget these things happening around us, whether they influence our business world or they certainly should influence our personal world. But our topic today, I'd like to bring kind of a geeky out. I wanted to bring a light to the darkness here. For those who know me personally and for those who have watched this show regularly, and for those that may just be being exposed to our show for the first time, I am a geek at heart, a joyful, happy, curious geek when it comes to these things. And I love bleeding edge technologies and innovations that come into our market space. And if it's not coming into our market space, wondering when things do get launched in other places, how it can apply to our market space, which is the inspiration to the show, actually, of all the things related to hospitality marketing. The topic today is getting in front of your guests' discoveries. This is an amazing technology year for us from the space, the world of space and space technologies, but also from the world of growth of what we're doing technologically when it comes to engagement softwares and programs and technologies that are being available, things that used to be out of reach for most businesses and only for those businesses that had a tremendous amount of money to go into this space. There is so much more being offered at a lower threshold of opportunity for companies. And what I'm referring to is something that's very near and dear to me personally is VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality. We, of course, had shows on this before, and I've talked about shows, context in shows as to its value proposition to our industry. We've talked about the fledgling aspect of it, the early adopter aspect of it, the it's not ready for prime time aspect of it. But this year will hallmark a transition in some things, especially when it comes to the volume of audiences that we are now referring to when we speak of VR users and AR users. Obviously, we have a list of things that have gone wrong in this world over the past years of early adoption. We talked about Google Glasses and the negative pushback of those, and a lot of it to the type of people that were using them, the exclusivity to them, the unfamiliarity of them and what have you. And of course, the privacy concerns even back then about them being able to capture so much. But here in our market now, we have things from Ray-Ban that have cameras in them that look like regular sunglasses if you didn't know to look better and see that there's actually lenses on either side of the frames on the glasses so that people can literally talk to it. They don't even have to tap it, touch it, or push a button to make it record POV, point of view videos. And nobody is balking at this anymore. They see the convenience factor of it more than they see the invasion of privacy potentials that were so negative to Google Glasses back in the day because of the monocle and the AR implant into the lens that you're looking through. So with that, we have also in just recent 3 years Oculus was a product that was purchased by Facebook, now called Meta. And it was a very bulky, cumbersome, what was called tethered, meaning that there's a cable that connected to the thing you put on your face to a computer. And the computer had to be a very healthy computer in the sense of technology. It had to have a great graphics card, RAM and ROM, and everything else that goes along with having a very beefy computer to run the very robust programs to give you a virtual reality. And for those unfamiliar with the terms intimately, virtual reality is where visually, because of wearing these headsets, these big goggly things, you don't see your real world. You see the displayed world on little screens in front of your eyes that are meant to give you depth perception and what have you in the virtual world. And so that virtual reality, VR, is what that is in reference to. That has come along a ways in a very short period of time. The most recent iteration of these Oculus glasses, these headsets, is a wireless in the sense that they're not tethered. They have their own battery and their own processor in the headset, and they run the virtual reality from the headset only without having to be plugged into a computer. Of course, if you do plug it into a computer, it even enhances the ability or the optics of it and makes it even better, but it's still tethered to that. Now they've made it wireless. And this has been something that everyone's been waiting, as we always do for technology, once the first edition of it comes out. And the Oculus 2 is not the first edition, as hence by its name, Oculus 2. It replaced the Oculus. Is that they were expecting there was going to be an Oculus 3 or an advanced Oculus or a Pro Oculus, whatever. And Meta, old Facebook, who bought Oculus, has decided that their next foray into this space is a project called Cambria that is more focused on work than it is pleasure. It will do the games and so forth that has created the high adoption rate. To give you a sense of adoption rates for VR, it's estimated that this year we'll have gotten to around 14 to 15 million people with headsets, VR headsets, whether it's Oculus 2 or a variety of other ones that are made, including earlier editions of Oculus. That 14 to 15 million people are expected to have these headsets and be using them. Next year, it's anticipated to be around 18 million. So that's a 4 million variance. And if you figure 14 million now, that means it's almost 25% volume increase for an audience. That's reaching very large numbers. For anything that we do, having millions of people using a technology and not having yourself in that technology to make sure that they are aware of you as a product of what you can do in these different platforms makes it very interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about what these platforms or what these things can be used for, but I want to talk about the other acronym we've been talking about, and that is AR, which is called Augmented Reality. And this is in context to our reference to VR, because the headsets that we're talking about, the next new one from Meta, the one that eventually Apple is going to release, the ones that Microsoft are changing from what they've been doing to what they're going to be doing. And even Meta is saying that they're actually planning the next 18 months to have release 4 new headsets. But the next one is this Cambria one. The augmented reality conversation is where you look through or looking out, and through the real world around you, your vision is augmented with additional information. We've all seen enough sci-fi movies of the robot view, and it has the view of what the robot seems to be looking at, and there's these overlays of all these things going on the screen, like numbers that are going by, think Terminator and so forth, and little crosshairs that says, oh, this is that and this is that. That's augmented reality in a visual way, in the sense that you're looking at a real world around you, but additional information is added into your view perspective. That was a lot what Google glasses were. Those were augmented reality glasses. There has been forays into this where Yelp had their monocle for a long time, which meant that you would hold up your phone and turn the camera on. And of course, your camera's seeing what you're seeing, but it would use the location of the camera to add extra view from what you're looking at through the screen on your phone, to have little bubbles of saying that this is restaurant name here, that's the restaurant here, that's the direction to this. Google advanced this dramatically with their live view, which was basically once you put in directions to your phone, rather than just look at the map on your screen and see the little blue dot that you are and the line that you were having to follow and the text description as to where to turn next, and even the audio saying in 200 feet, turn right, and 100 feet, turn left, whatever. They added a live view, which meant that you held up the phone, And now it would do the same thing. It would show you, the camera would get turned on, it would show you what you're already looking at, but in the view of your phone, you would have your directions, where it would have a little arrow down the street that it's looking at saying this is where you're going to turn left, or this is the place you're looking for, or this is what this is. And that was a novelty in that sense, that not a lot of people used it, and not every place it was usable for. But there was also a lot of things that came with it, and that was inaccuracies. Because as we know, our phones have a tremendous amount of technology in them as to barometers for height, locations for lat and longitude, which is the old way of looking at cross points of where you are, first on the lat and longitude of the planet. And from that, the phone and talking to Google would determine where you were with a pretty good level of accuracy. But when you're in the urban canyons, as it were, if you're in New York or any large metro city and so forth, the ability for the phone to communicate well enough with Google to be highly accurate began to break down. Sometimes your location wasn't exactly where you may be in the corner of first and second, but the dot is somewhere on the map that's not on the same corner as you. Now, some people, and using Uber or any other ride service, knows that that's critical, because that was a problem in cities like New York, where you're going to go meet your Uber driver and you think you're on the northwest corner, and you say that's where I'm going to meet my Uber driver, but the app shows you on the other corner. Well, that's the information that the Uber driver is getting. And so they pull to the other corner, even though you're at the other corner. And now it's a matter of getting across the corner, calling them up frantically, saying, I see you, I'm on the other corner, I'm coming over now, whatever. It creates just a consistency issue with it. Plus, also from a matter of directions, especially when you're walking, those urban canyons where your cell phone reception either being low or too much business on the bandwidth made it difficult to get that kind of level of consistent data flow to your phone, meant that sometimes your instructions were a little late. You passed where you needed to turn before the phone actually caught up to where you were, and now all of a sudden it's rerouting you. You got to go back. Maybe you're on a one-way road, whatever. It created logistics issues. So as good as it was intended to create, it wasn't always as good as it possibly could be. So these challenges have existed. Now, think of it in another sense. Those in lots of metro areas and in somewhat suburban areas and so forth that have enough walking traffic, there's a lot of these shared services, bicycles, scooters, and so forth, and they all have GPS tracking on them. And the idea that they work well is that they get dropped off in places that are identified as places to drop them off at. The stations that you lock the bike in, or the station that you drop the scooter off, so that other people looking to rent scooters, it shows on the map where they would be. And even if it wasn't necessarily at a designated spot, at least the accuracy of where the scooter was very important. Because if I'm renting a scooter and it says it's right around the corner from me, and I get there and the scooter's not there, my first thought is it either got re-rented or there's a wrong location. When in fact, the scooter might be there, but just about another 50 foot down the street, because the location accuracy of that GPS talking to that scooter's location is off that much. These are the logistic things associated with it. And I told you we're going to geek out today. So I apologize for anything where it's like, what's this have to do with hospitality marketing? We're getting to that. These are all hospitality aspects, having lift services, ride services, scooters, shared ride stuff, location directions, walking, driving, so forth, are all aspects of travel, aka hospitality. But the technology of this stuff had to mature. Now, we have known now for 15 years that Google has been doing Google Streets. We thought it was so crazy amazing that they would drive cars all over the streets and take 360 pictures of where the car was driving. And then on Google Maps, we could not only see the map and get the information we need from it, which was the initial intention of just giving directions for people to get to places. But now we have this whole ability to visually go there when the car drove through there. So we can actually stand in the middle of the street, so to speak, and scroll around on the screen and look around and see what's there at that location. What does the front of the building actually look like? What does the street actually look like? What's next to it? And so forth. But it was reliant upon that picture the last time it was taken. Now, Google Maps has changed very much from its initial beginnings of being a directions-based service. It has added so much now to information and discovery, because the map knowing where you're located also can help in the local search, which we know is such a critical component of our marketing strategy, of all the things around you. But it didn't solve some fundamental things that were just still there that, boy, wouldn't it be neat if, or how helpful would it be if? And that comes to what's called live view. What live view means is you get a sense of more information than what the static information was generated for. You figure now for 15 years, Google has been running around and satellite images for Google Earth and everything else. And there's this wonderful video, which we will have in the show notes, that you can go watch all of the things that are associated with their new Geospatial API, which is your ability to use this type of stuff now for your own application development and then programming. It's talking about all the types of data that it has collected, the billions and trillions of pictures that have been augmented into Google for people taking pictures with Google, that's shared in the Google Drive, that's in the Google Photos, all that stuff we load up there. In those pictures we take, and whether you have an Apple or a Google phone, an Android phone, you know that when you take a picture, it's more than just a picture that you took. It knows the location you were in. It knows the time of day that you were taking the picture. And from that, it also knows the local weather. So it knows it was rainy outside or not rainy outside or whatever have you. All that data gets stored with the relationship of that particular picture. And that's stored on those servers, which means that's data that they use. We've gone through the permissions conversation on the shows many years ago. So we've been feeding Google billions and trillions of pictures. And also they have been, for 15 years, driving all over the globe to 98% of the entire world, plus satellite imagery, high-def imagery, and so forth. They've accumulated all of this together into their geospatial program. Now, their geospatial program is used for first priority, which is Google products, Google Maps, Google Local, all of that information, Google Goggles. If these terms aren't familiar, definitely worth researching into all the things that these platforms do. But the idea is that all this information has now been aggregated into one API, which is API is Access Programming Interface, where it is saying that I'm willing to share data connective technically between the data that they have and what you would use it for technically. It's a means of communication between programs is what APIs are. It's a key that allows them to talk to each other. So this geospatial API is just now rolling out. And some of the things that they're doing with it are truly impressive. And believe me, we'll bring the VR AR back into our dialogue on this. Where, say for instance, and I know from being a business traveler for many years, as familiar as I am with airports and how many times I may have been in a particular airport, inevitably I'll be at an airport that I've not been into before, or I'm in an airport in another country where it's even harder to understand what it is and where it is I need to go, because it's not easy for me to intuitively see the signs and know what the signs are meaning as easily as if it were my own language. So yes, there's other solutions. Google Translate, you hold your phone up, it looks at the sign, and it literally changes the view of the sign from the language that it's in to the language you've asked it to be translated to. Incredibly helpful. But what would be even more helpful is the ability to look through my live view of my phone, and having asked that I need to go to gate 12 in the B concourse, hold up my phone and it would literally show me an arrow in augmented reality. Remember, looking through the camera of my phone, where it shows a little arrow and what is the real world telling me to go down to the left hallway instead of the right hallway. Or this is what you were looking for here, a little arrow pointing down. This is the ATM kiosk you were looking for, or this is the locker you need to put your stuff into, whatever you asked for to get to. It also is helpful that if you're looking for places to eat, that you hold up the phone and it can say, that restaurant is here, that restaurant is there. If you want to go to this restaurant, here's a click for the menu if you want to see the menu and what have you. All of that happens in live view. Also with this live view is the ability to, as they talk about it, be able to look at a location, and because of the enormous amount of data that they have over a massive amount of time, you can not only see the transition with a time lapse, so where you slide the time as to days, weeks, months, hours of the day, or what have you, you can see where the sun sets and sun rises. You can see how busy a place gets and how unbusy it gets based on the time of day you're looking at for the day that you're looking at. So if you want to see, let's just make this up because it's close to real as it is right now, there's a certain restaurant I want to go to in London. And they actually use this example in discussion, so it's easy for me to refer to it. You can look at live view and time lapse it over the course of the day that you're interested in going. Say, I want to go there on a Saturday. So it'll look at its Saturday information. And then you say, well, I'm going to roll that. I'm thinking about going there in the afternoon. So I'm going to roll the time lapse between noon and 6 p.m. And you can literally first off see if the sun comes in the window. It's not worth sitting outside because you're in the sun the whole time and there's no umbrellas. Or how busy it gets with the people that it shows or doesn't show in it to know, ooh, 4 o'clock, it looks like it really begins to get busy. I don't think I want to go there after 4 o'clock because I don't want to fight the crowd. That is now being added into all the data that Google has about that information. So it's not just about finding the location of the restaurant, looking at the menu that it has, seeing its hours of operation on Google Local on the map view, and determining whether you want to go there. It's, or call it and communicate or whatever. It's actually knowing whether or not you're interested in going because of other factors that aren't identifiable as easily, like is it busy or not busy? And yes, you can answer to Google Local. There is a time cycle that it shows when it tends to be busy, when it doesn't tend to be busy. That data that they've been using to build that little, it's going to be busier now or later, is the kind of data that they're now using in their viewing component. So it's just not the traffic of people connecting to Google while they're there or searching for it or all the ways that they can determine via IP and location that place is necessarily busy, but they can actually visually add the data they have to it. They also talk about in this Geospatial API that they are aggregating other data so that more and more photography can get easily identified to increase your accuracy of knowing exactly where you are rather than where you are roughly at. Remember the examples I gave about those Uber Lyfts being on the wrong corner of an intersection because your location-based tracking in your phone was varied just enough that the distance between the corner you're standing on and the other corner put it in the realm of possibility. So the software says that you're on the other corner, but in reality, you're on the northwest corner. Well, that improvement of accuracy comes from the fact that even though you don't have better cell phone connection or bandwidth on cell phone, it's called air cloud identification. And what that means is that because you have your phone look around, okay, it can identify the buildings because it has so many pictures of all the buildings in that intersection that you're at, that it can determine from the perspective that you're seeing that building from with your phone and adding it to the data that the phone is providing them, it can be higher accuracy of knowing you're on the northwest corner compared to the other corner because the perspective of how you see the buildings means that you have to be on the northwest corner compared to any alternative. That, in addition to all the other aspects of content that it is pulling from, makes it hyper accurate. Now, the video that I will send a link to in the show, which I think is absolutely fascinating, it talks about and shows how all of the data that it has been accumulating for Google to learn about has different layers of understanding. So when we take a photo, it has a lot of stuff in it that isn't always going to be in the photo should you take it even a second later, because cars move, people move, plants grow, plants don't grow. But the buildings are pretty much persistently in some shape similar to what they were before, unless, of course, they were dramatically reduced or taken away. But there is what's called durable visibility points of reference. When a picture is taken, a computer, Google's computer, can determine the permanency of the points of data that it sees. So it can show you the picture that you took, which is situationally a slice in time at that moment you took it. But then it can also identify in the picture you took the more permanent and tangible, persistent points of data, i.e. the outline of a building and what have you, that a computer will remember and to compare it to another image that another person took in the same location, perhaps in a different location exactly from where you stood, but maybe 5 foot over, 10 foot over, across the street or whatever. But it begins to correlate all those permanent position points to give a spatial representation of what that area looks like, hence the term Geospatial API. It's adding the spatial referencing of the data so that it can improve all these accurate things. Now, how does this come around to us? Well, from a VR and AR perspective, The difference between having a photo, and we've talked about this when we talked about 360 videos and getting rich media content and so forth. Say, for instance, I walk into your hotel with a 360 camera and I set it up in your lobby and I snap a shot. Okay. Then I go into the area, the common area beside the lobby, and snap another shot. Now, when we do a tour, which you can do with Google Street View, we've talked about this on shows before, then that's much like Google Maps. You have a picture standing outside the building that says, hey, there's points of view inside. And so you click and say, oh, this is the lobby point of view, and click it. And now you're looking at the lobby from the perspective of where I took the picture in the lobby. Doesn't mean you can walk around the lobby. You can spin the image around to look all the way around you. That's the 360 aspect. I mean, you look down, you can look down, up, you can look all the way around, but you can't move from the position that the picture was taken. Say, for instance, I take a 360 video and offer that up. Well, I walk into the lobby and I walk up to the front desk and then I walk over to the common area. And then when I put that video up, you're reenacting the video that I took. Now, even though I took it in 360, you're only seeing it in the 2-dimension of the screen that I said, make sure that the camera is framed in this direction. And then as we walk in that direction, I want to frame it over to the right-hand side. And then I want to go to the left-hand side. So whatever I decide I want you to see is what you see repetitively. Anytime we play that video, it'll be the same video. Now, in VR, I can take that same 360 video and you put your headset on, your VR headset, and you can now walk into the lobby with me and look around to wherever you want to look as the video has been recorded. So in other words, you can't walk in any direction you want to, but you can now look around as if you were in the location of the camera as it was taking the video. That is a 360 video. It all still doesn't mean you can choose to walk around the lobby as if you were there. You can walk from a point of reference that I took a video, or you can walk from a point of reference that I took a picture, but you're only hopscotching from one point to another. Again, think of Google Street Maps. I'm in this position, I hit the arrow, I go to the next position, I hit the arrow, I go to the next position. While I'm at those positions, I can look around and scroll the screen around, or if I'm wearing a VR headset, which there are apps in VR that you can do Google Maps like this, you can look around whatever way you want to, but you can only look from the reference that the video and the photo was taken. Geospatial recording, which is photogeometry, is the ability to take, with, not to get super geeky, but I will for a second, LiDAR, which is light emitting data radar, basically with light, is it will take and figure out the distance of everything point by point by point from where you took the picture from. If you take enough pictures around the room, it will correlate that the corner of the couch is still the corner of a couch in this picture, it's still the corner of the couch in the other picture, and still the corner of the couch in that picture, and on and on and on. Which means that if I took that geospatial photogeometric image and put it in VR, then you can literally, in a VR environment, physically in a room, walk around the room. You can walk behind the couch. You can walk up to the front desk. You could walk around the room as if you were there in the room. That geographic, that geospatial perspective is genuine VR replacement. That location capability of being able to choose to look around and walk around, it doesn't mean you can pick things up or anything. That has a whole nother sense of three-dimensional objects. But you can walk around. You've seen it in sci-fi movies where all of a sudden everything freezes and then one of the characters is walking around the room as everything's frozen. Okay. That's what you're able to do in VR. There are some really neat VR programs that are out there that are the edge of their time, where they are taking some beautiful places and creating geospatial images of rooms that you're there and you can walk around the room. And they even go so far as to make some objects three-dimensional objects, and you can actually pick up a vase and look at it and put it back down. It's not in the super high def that we would think real life to be, but it's getting there. It's getting that way. And you can, as we've talked about in live shows before, create three-dimensional objects. We've talked about that as an ad campaign, actually. So anyway, with the geospatial or photogeometry of what you can do, you can create these spatial awarenesses. As I'd like to say, wonder if you did a geospatial picture of your house when you grew up as a kid. and you took it as a time frame, like Star Trek's hologram deck. It goes back in time and makes an exact replica. Say, for instance, you did this in VR. You could go back and visit that house whenever you want to at the time that you took those pictures. The house may be destroyed, no longer the same, whatever it is, but you can go back in time and see the house as it was because you took these geospatial pictures that you could walk around and see all the things that were there as they were when you took the picture. That's incredibly cool. Now, how does that work to hospitality marketing? Here's the fun part to all of these geospatial things. What it's doing is allowing you to not only identify things exactly where they're located and all the happy stuff about directions and ability to see in live view and look at the interiors of places. It also allows you to put things in that world. So you can put advertisements on a billboard in a spatial perspective that weren't really there when the picture was taken. It also means that you can put things to be discovered. Remember when they did Pokemon and the 3D and everyone's running around trying to grab stuff in 3 dimensions? You can do that now. We've actually talked about that on the show a few times back. I think show number 347, I think we talked about it in detail with apps that actually do this stuff, and they're not cheap, and they're not expensive apps. But the geospatial things allows that to happen. What also makes it fun is augmented reality means that you can, if you have the geospatial correctness of everything being exactly right, then if you want to augment a view through your camera without it being completely virtual, you're looking at real life, real world around you, but the camera is identifying, your phone's identifying what it's looking at. You can put things in that space in augmented reality that you can view through the view of your phone that don't exist there. You can put plants in the sidewalk. You can put waterfalls off the top of a building. And I know this sounds kind of cutesy and so forth, but that also means that you can give directions, locations, indications, additional content, additional information, more active action buttons, things that would be helpful in the discovery of what it is that's making them look through the camera in your area to say, this is the restaurant, here's the menu. You might even have a virtual person walk out and talk to you about the restaurant as if it was the owner, having been recorded, coming out and saying, hey, I'm so happy you're looking at our restaurant. Let me tell you a little bit what makes this so unique and special. Think about going to a museum and you're looking at an art piece and you look through the lens of your camera, of your photo, of your phone, and up pops the docent or the artist of the piece standing beside their piece, okay, like Star Wars hologram, help me, Obi-Wan, okay, and standing beside the piece and describes to you what the piece is about and what inspired them to write it or make it or whatever. That's the power of AR in this circumstance. But from a marketing point of view, the really unique aspect of this geospatial is getting in front of your guests. And you know I was going to come around to the title of the show today, is getting in front of your guests as to the discovery. We're talking about 18 million people using VR. Granted, most of them probably are not truly in depth technologically wise about the headset as much as they play games on it or do fitness workout things with it or whatever. But the medium becomes more familiar to people. They become advocates to their friends. Those friends buy headsets as well. It turns into a larger audience that will begin to use this. Imagine what it would be like if you were to invite them to your resort, introduce yourself if they wanted to talk to you, like, hey, talk to the owner. And they walk over to a location and up pops the owner going, hi, welcome. So I would love to show you my hotel, so forth. And you can walk around their lobby, walk out by their pool, walk into a hotel room, see what it looks like outside, look at the parking, whatever it is that of interest to you. Plus, maybe give a tour of the city saying, hey, let me show you around the city for a little bit. What would you be interested in? And make it interactive where you can touch a button that says, hey, I want to look at restaurants. Oh, I have 5 that I would love to show you. Are you interested in this type of cuisine, this type of cuisine? And you either say it or touch a button in the virtual world. And now you're off to whatever it is that you indicated you're interested in. The ability to see and become aware of what their expectations should be in traveling is an amazing opportunity this technology can provide. You know, there's a bajillion places I haven't visited in the world. And one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed with my VR headset during the pandemic and the lockdown and so forth that we were dealing with was I was able to put my headset on and get amazing videos and standing still places of going to the Sistine Chapel before the fire. not before the fire, Sistine before the Notre Dame before the fire, the Sistine Chapel, standing there underneath the amazing ceiling, going to Mount Everest. And there's videos where people you actually going up the mountain with them where they have a camera on their headsets. It's scary as heck. Or just where they took a picture of being on Mount Everest and you're standing on top of the mountain looking in any direction you want to for when that picture was taken around the mountain, but looking and being on the mountain and looking around. It was amazing to travel the world like that. As I mentioned, there was an app in VR that allows you to go wherever Google Street Maps are and stand there in the street in VR 360 to look around. Is the resolution perfect every time? No. Is it not in some ways distorted at points? No. But it's getting better. And now with this geospatial capability, it's going to get even better because of it. So how amazing would it be that instead of a TripAdvisor or an Expedia, you decide that you are going to take a virtual tour, introduction to a place, and say that you get introduced at you're outside of the hotel, and you're looking around, and you're like, okay, I want to walk into the hotel, and you physically walk towards the hotel into the doorway and through the door, and you're now in the lobby. Now, of course, if you're not in a big room that is virtually virtual space reliant, where what's called room size, where you have a whole huge room to walk around, in virtual world, they create invisible barriers that if you get too close to what is a physical wall, but you can't see because you're wearing the headsets, a little grid pops up in your virtual world that says, hey, this is a wall you said not to go past. And so to stay in your virtual guardian is what it's called area. Well, you can augment your travels by using the little joysticks on the grip where you just joystick yourself forward without having to physically walk that way. But once you're in a location that you're interested in, you can physically walk around the room, look at stuff, see what the room looks like, see how it feels for space, see if you like it. The amazing experience of it, but also have interactivity in there where you could tap a button or simply say to the microphone, hey, tell me about this room. And then somebody pops up beside you and says, hi, I'm so interested. I'm happy you're interested in this room. This is our king bedroom with bathrooms. If you notice, you walk around the corner there's a bathroom, it has and somebody can actually guide you like they would give you a property tour. They could also have a concierge level engagement to it. This is, so if I'm at your hotel, where should I go do things? Oh, we have these things that are interesting. What would you be most interested to know about? And have some medium that says, okay, you're interested in the farmer's market around the corner on Saturdays. Great. Let me bring you there to one of our farmer's market. And it could be a video interaction at that point that you're not making you walk around the farmer's market, but the video will bring you through the farmer's market so you get a sense of what it looks like and how it feels and so forth. There's so many possibilities of adding this geospatial capability and making it interactive. That's the VR side in the pure VR side. The really neat part of all of the other side of AR is having the geospatial accuracy that it can provide you, okay? Where it knows that the front desk is literally there because you made it geospatially correct. It can put little augmented reality things that don't exist in the physical world on the desk. And if you're wearing AR glasses, which is very much in the near future, you can just simply touch it with your hand, which is not touching anything, but because you did it in the AR space, it starts whatever you ask to hit a button that tells you about something, or ask for directions, or what is the direction I need to go to, and it puts it in the AR world for you to follow it. And if you look for more information, so it actually augments augmented reality, AR, your world with more information to help you in the process. Think of it from the idea that, as we get better and better with translations, not only could you audibly hear somebody speak another language and audibly hear the translation in your head, it could also be as simple as somebody speaking in their language and it translates in AR in front of you so that you can read it faster than you can probably hear it. And then as you say something, it audibly would go back into the language that the person needs to hear to understand what you said. How amazing of a travel world would that be to have those kind of functionalities? So, told you I was going to geek out today. That's my geeking out portion of the program. It is one of those things that we're in that world of transition right now. It is happening now. This geospatial API is now. The ability to use it is up to our imagination. What can we use with it? How can we integrate with it? Google wants us to do this because it only amplifies their value of what it is that they're offering and the data that they collect from it and the value proposition, what they can be using that data for. So it's a vicious cycle war when it comes to that. But the reality is all of this stuff is stuff that, no, I'm not telling you to go out and spend money on it today. Block and tackle, the things that you need to do each day are much more important than these types of things. But knowing that these things have their potential in the near and not too distant future, that technologies are going to come into our lifestyle for more than even the 18 million people anticipated next year, are all things that we need to consider in our thought processes of how cool would it be if I was the first to do it? How cool would it be if I was making sure that I was planning for it? Those are the things that make this kind of conversation all the more interesting when it comes to the value proposition of these types of AR, VR, spatial APIs, geospatial APIs, and the information capabilities that all of them have to offer. So that's our discussion for today. I hope I didn't bring you down too much of a geek world, but if you followed me for the entire process, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm welcome to all questions. The link of the conversation, the article that I was referring to most today, I'll have in the show notes. You can get those show notes, of course, at hospitalitychannel.tv. You can, of course, email it at me at any time at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. I answer each and every email. We will recap this conversation later this afternoon on our podcast. And we'll talk about some tools for some other stuff that we don't get to talk about on the live show here, but we do it in the podcast. The podcast runs between 20 and 30 minutes. We've been doing it every week for 17 years. This live TV show, which is on our TV channel, you can watch us on Roku, Google TV, Amazon, Prime TV, Apple TV, plus on every social media platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all of them there, multiple ways of finding this on all of those platforms as well. Just look for the Hospitality Digital Marketing, the live show, Hospitality Marketing Live show. I should say Hospitality Digital Marketing is the name of my company. Anywho's, my name is Lauren Gray. Again, I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.